Do you want a suicide note? Because I've got one, 300 pages long. No, I don't want to die. I want to cruise the Caribbean, have lovers around the world. I want to laugh, sing, dance, and push my career to its limits. But if you stop me, if you tell me I can't have the life I had, if you tell me I can't kick back and relax, if you tell me I can't laugh at myself, at you, at life, I will stab myself in the head, carve slots into my arm, and slit my throat in front of you. And don't say I never told you why. I've been trying to for years. Now, obviously I haven't been trying to tell you for years, but the need to be understood has become of crucial importance, as I've been locked up several times simply for not being so. People tell me I should accept what happened because it is not just me. It is precisely because it is not just me that I will not stay silent. When I wrote that first poem, I felt that death would be justified to get this story out. This opportunity to talk to you now seems far preferable. Our story starts in 2016. I had recently separated from my husband, a man I had loved since I was 4 years old, after losing him emotionally to my best friend. A woman who, like him, liked gardening and watching TV, two things I never had an aptitude for. Part of me thought they were better suited than us, and part of me thought it might be a long temporary separation while we both worked on ourselves, and that one day, maybe, I might get him back. Until then, I wanted some company and to explore my sexuality further. So getting with the times, I wrote a dating profile. It went as follows, abridged version. Hi, hello, I'm Poppy. I'm an incredibly smart aerospace engineer and very successful amateur model. I'm a nice person and will do what I can for the people I care about. I judge on the person, not the past. I know how to have fun. I can learn to do anything I put my mind to, and I'm possibly one of the best lays you'll ever have. I'm also a complete and utter nut job who doesn't know when to quit. I don't know my left from my right. I can't spell for toffee. I struggle to spell toffee. I need everything to be just right, and simultaneously am incapable of keeping a place tidy. I will drink wine at 9 a.m. and tea at midnight. I'm impatient, prone to stress, and quite possibly bipolar. I didn't think back then I actually was bipolar, but it sounded funnier than autistic, and it was what my husband was accusing me of. If you think you can handle me, it would be nice to have some company on my mission to make the world a better place. I can promise you one thing. It won't be easy, but it will be fabulous. And fabulous it was going to be. I was going to be the best version of me. My mission to make the world a better place was called Operation Guardian Angel, and it mostly comprised looking out for people, writing a book, kicking work's butt, and shagging a lot. I was going to live a full and impeccable life, navigating autism and heartbreak with hard work and hard lovers, not meds and meditation, and document it as the nerd's guide to living. I was sectioned before I got past the first chapter. If you could see my scars, you'd know I'd been betrayed. If you could see my scars, you'd know that I'd been flayed. Oh my God, I've forgotten the poem, sorry. You tied your kids away. You tell them, babe, don't look. She's so very damaged, some kind of hidden crook. If you could see my scars, you'd turn yourself away, hiding your repulse, unsure of what to say. But you can't see my scars, so let us play pretend, until the scarring heals, all right, in the end. My separation happened to coincide with the Brexit vote, which I was deeply affected by. The xenophobics and uneducated bullies had won, but the optimist in me thought that maybe this could be the start of an expert revolution, because they had seriously pissed off anyone academic in the world. And maybe, just maybe, if the nerds like me could find their voice, we could turn it into something good. I didn't want to weave a web. I didn't want to change the world. I didn't want to scream and shout or turn my body inside out. I wanted just the quiet life, to have a job and be a wife, to maybe have a kid or two and spend my life alone with Hugh. But life is strange and sticks and stones. Despite them, words will break your bones. But words can change your life around and put your feet back on the ground. And words with nothing left to lose. You have a life. You live. You choose. And now I choose my soul to bear. At least I'll try. At least I care. The dating profile was popular and attracted a man whose sexual fantasies matched my own, and who, like me, seemed to have a belief that things were not over and have a plan of action, though he would not tell me what it was. We had the best, most debauched first date ever, and I wanted more. But to prove his confidence, or just to indulge his own perversions, he wanted me to get a stranger to take naked pictures of me to send to him. At the time, I modelled nude frequently, so nudity was not an option, but involving innocence in my sex life, that was a hard no. As we battled backwards and forwards, I had my first ever 4-day bender at the age of 35. Seeing the world through new eyes, I experienced firsthand how powerful sleazy people can sense a person in distress and hone in on them in seconds. As I was traipsing down to Ashford to try and see him, I stopped in an O'Neill's for a burger and a pint. Immediately, a coked-up CEO descended on me, plying me with drinks, offering me cigarettes, feeling me up outside and inviting me to party. And I was so horny, I let it happen for a while. All the time I was thinking, this is what happens to homeless women. I was not a homeless woman, and I got away easily, though a little shaken. The adventures continued until on day 4 I had a date I'd forgotten about with a guy who turned out to be a creep, who exacerbated my out-of-control sex drive rather than abated it. I kicked off in the pub, deranged and sleep-deprived, and was arrested for drunk and disorderly. I had seen how easy it was to spiral, and how many predators were just waiting for a chance to prey. I was a rabbit on a date with a fox, and the police were the RSPCA. I act like the predator, but I am the prey. Don't ask me why. God made me that way. Now, if they had called the mental health services on me that day, it would have made sense. But they didn't. They threw me in a cell and let me scream and scream and scream until all the stress and tension and fear was gone. Someone should give Chris, the second lieutenant at Stevenage Police Station, a medal. After screaming my guts out all night, he calmly and caringly walked me through the process of having my fingerprints taken. His parting words to me were, don't worry, a lot of people who go on to do amazing things have records for drunk and disorderly. I felt seen and supported, ready to get I had my husband and this guy out of my system, ready to go on and do those amazing things. Of course I knew I was insane. It ever was the way. But never did I mean to find so much anger nor such pain. But love hurts, planes, flies, lullabies. Your love destroyed my soul. And now I need my medicine because a world of untold lies. Truth hurts, judgment dies. Deranged and random, messed up thoughts, 3 a.m. waffling. Trying. Oh, the loss. Work was the pinnacle to all my plans. And I had a proposal to beat all proposals. Not only would it cost the company nothing but my current wage, it would enhance the quality of my existing work rather than detract from it. Build a simple database to collate the myriad of spreadsheets into one central coherent data store. I knew I could do it because I'd done it before. I was cutting it a bit fine, the bender rather cutting into my prep time. But I still had 6 days till the meeting, plenty of time to whack up a quick demo. I was sectioned 2 days later, after nothing more than a row with my parents. I have often said that my parents got me sectioned, but that is below me. My parents didn't get me sectioned. How could they? They were worried. Of course they were worried. Their daughter had just got arrested. It was the absurd assessment and taboo about talking about sex and ambition that got me sectioned. I had gone to see my parents after the arrest on the express promise that they would drive me home by 1 p.m. the next day in time for a dear friend to come visit, take me to IKEA, and maybe, finally, release some of that sexual tension, though I didn't tell them that part. I had a disrupted night's rest, and they reneged on the promise by allowing me to oversleep. When I woke up at the time you were due to leave, I was frazzled. They were fussing about tea and breakfast, and I was imploring them to get going, screaming at them to get going. They called a doctor on me. I freaked and ran from the house, and from then, I called the police for a lift. Should have called a taxi in hindsight, but I've been so impressed with my dealings with the police before, and I was worried my parents would turn the taxi away. The police came. The doctors came. I spoke to both of them and felt it was all resolved. They asked if I would go to A&E for a quick checkup. A quick checkup that took 24 hours and ended with my incarceration. I trusted you. You brought me up, but trouble has dogged your life. So I would never bother you with my own grief and strife. I hid my fire and passions, putting your needs first, but life and pain and suffering made my heart about to burst. And then one day, I needed you to help rebuild my life. But rather than encourage me, you raised the chopping knife. I'd always been a good girl. You loved that I was kind. But seeing my ambition drove you out your fucking mind. I didn't mean to scare you. You'd never seen the flame. No wonder you were worried. Just history to blame. But honestly, how could you? I didn't ask for much, just a little understanding and a parent's tender touch. I do not blame you, parents. I know you truly care, but nothing's ever hurt as much as that you did there. It wasn't all your fault, though. You never could have known the sexism of mental health that chills me to the bone. I say sexism because I believe that had I been male, that ambition and actively seeking sex would not have given them cause for concern. In my assessment, my proposal was noted as an idea of grandeur. My promiscuity and belief that I was widely liked as vulnerabilities, and the words did not admit to drug use for the drugs I did not take really irked me. The doctors spent more time talking to my parents than they did to me. To this day, I wish I had only given them permission to talk to us together. I was left with a woman who stood looking at me with tears in her eyes while I begged her to get the doctors back so I could explain further. She just stood there crying while I was begging and dying. She just stood there crying while my inner soul was torn. She just stood there crying while I was begging and dying. She just stood there crying, a voyeur of pain. From the moment I was sectioned, I became convinced that the way that mental health is handled in A&E drives homelessness. I felt like running and risking it all on the streets. I almost did, and I had everything to lose. And I feel and know that people with less than me would do it. I was taken to Radcliffe Ward. It is one of the newest and most modern in the country, but what it had in terms of courtyards and individual ensuite rooms, it lacked in facilities, staffing, and most distressingly, anything to do. The bookshelves were almost empty, notably except for a copy of Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, a book and author that should never be allowed in a mental ward. There were a series of fairly bad puzzles and some half-complete games, and that was it. The staff were frankly terrifying, and no one would explain to me why I was there. A question that none of the patients seemed to have an answer to. Feeling like an expose was needed, and that maybe this guy had pushed me too far on purpose, maybe that was his plan. I kept notes of what I saw and felt on paper towels. An old woman screams out, "I know what I did! I know what I did! I'm in the worst place in the world!" She spots a nurse passing and instantly shuts down and stops. So apparently, my behavior is manic. I call it driven. When you want something a lot, it becomes important. When it becomes important, you become emotionally attached. You cry or scream when stuff gets in the way of your goals. A woman is sat at the end of the corridor, screaming that, "I don't want to be in these places anymore, just knock me out. I'm tired of being treated like a fucking guinea pig. I just want to go home. I don't care anymore." And the woman who all she wants is a fucking cigarette, who is hurting herself by slamming herself against the walls, who at the same time as screaming is apologizing for screaming. "I'm sorry, I don't want to shout at you. I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want any more bruises. All I want is a cigarette so I can sit in the garden and calm down." Is that too much to ask? Well, is it? There was a courtyard right there, and you had no permission to have that one cigarette, a legal human right. The smoking laws in mental wards being the main reason that the wards kick off, and something that is despised by staff and patients alike. The Alchemist talks about looking for signs from the universe, and the first time my mind tripped was in that ward that first time. Lying on my bed, feeling like I would never be happy again, which was all I had ever wanted, to be happy. Thoughts of suicide flashed across my mind. At that exact time, my push-button shower turned itself on. A message to get up, clean up, and continue. I cautiously rounded the corner to the bathroom, half expecting to see an apparition of a golden angel standing there. The room was obviously empty. They let me out after 3 nights with no meds and no diagnosis. That might have been it. I was horrified by what I'd seen, but it had been an interesting and eye-opening experience. I'd seen segments of society that I had had no knowledge of before. An apology was all I needed to make it okay. We're sorry, we made a mistake, you're fine. But that wasn't what happened. The guy in my discharge meeting looked at me like I was indeed deranged and had been let out on a technicality, and more distressingly work, which I loved, which I had a time-limited proposal for, wouldn't let me come back, insisting that I was ill and needed time off. It was also the end of my marriage. From the day I was sectioned, my husband, who had been bombarding me with messages, stopped communicating. And with no communication, there is no future. Oh, why am I still here, Lord? I died so long ago. Why do you make me dread this world, Lord, trapped in death's sorrow? The endless onward grind, Lord, when I've already peaked that time you took my soul and put me back upon my feet. I walk this world in silence, a pain I can't repress, wishing that death would take me, let my fake smile rest. Left without any footholds, over the next 2-3 months, I spiraled, until one day, after a frustrating meeting at work when I was yet again refused to return to the office, on a weekend in Bootle, I first experienced extreme psychosis and I think nearly died. My frustrations were doubled by my heavy drinking friend disapproving of a guy who was being wonderful to me, purely on the basis of him having a coke habit, while she was simultaneously fucking a guy with a partner. With the stress and booze and frustrations, things were starting to get weird. I was sensing her dead parents in the hallway and feeling like I was unraveling a universal theory of human psychology that I can remember none of now. Knowing that I needed to sober up and fast, I started pounding the streets on a hunt for cocaine. Cocaine? Sober? It counteracts the effects of alcohol and it would have helped. I had, however, never bought drugs before, and I was terrible at it. Frustrated, I gave some random people 60 quid and left empty-handed. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was apologizing for the torrential rain that I was sure I was the cause of. The hospital I went to only existed as far as I could see it. I was designing it with my brain, and it was perfect. I begged the staff, who seemed to appear and disappear with my emotions, not to let me die, and they assured me I would not. But at one point, walking towards the most beautiful sunset I had ever seen, the clothes I was wearing started transforming from a badly fitted jeans and t-shirt outfit into a beautiful scarlet red dress. At this point, the psychosis was too much. Your clothes do not just transform themselves in the human realm. Withdrawing from the illusion, I stumbled and collapsed onto the nearest hospital bed. The doctors kept telling me I needed to sleep, but I felt that if I slept without eating, I would cease to exist. I begged them for a drip, and they told me they had installed one, but I could neither see nor feel it, so I could not sleep. And the psychosis continued to build until I could sense what I thought was the devil. Who is he, the one I close my eyes and see? The one who's always there but never comes, who beats the sound of knocking drums. Raggy doll, why do I let you in? You're the serpent, the snake I want within. The snake that slithers on my thighs and promises me paradise. The serpent fills my loins with lust. Resist his silky touch and push him back into the dust, but I can feel in its left a clutch, a nest of darkness planted deep, ready to burst and through my body seep. The snakes invade and turn my hair to blazing flame. They'd win if I was on my own. Temptations inside every bone. I'd cave, I'd crawl, I'd scream, I'd moan, I'd find you under every stone. But I am stronger than you think, and time will soothe with every blink. Not alone I will survive, the thoughts inside will soon subside. I do not gripe about this second sectioning the same way I do about the first, because unlike the first time, my thoughts and minds were unraveled. But by the time I had survived the night in hospital, it was over, and a month locked up with no one talking to me about what had happened just made the trauma worse. For a month, and then merely weeks after release, detained again, this time after being caught trying to steal a pint of milk and a can of Red Bull from the W.H. Smiths at King's Cross Station at the end of another bizarre day. What, though, would I have got through the courts of law for that? A slap on the wrist? Probably not even a fine. I certainly wouldn't have been locked up for 4 weeks. 4 weeks of sitting and waiting, with no therapy and no explanation. I'm like a warrior, poised for battle, sitting, waiting, sitting, thinking, knowing that I might die, weary from the war already fought, thinking this might be the time I don't come back. Sitting, waiting, sitting, thinking, ready, planning. It's been so long, it's been so hard, the battle's fought, the battle's lost, the glimmer of hope. Here we go, one last push, over the top, fight, onward, stand, shot down. I haven't seen my section notes for any time except the first. Apparently they don't like to show them to people in case it triggers a reaction. I say that no one is triggered by the truth, and part of your job as a psychiatric doctor is to be able to have these tough conversations. It was the second time that I received my bipolar diagnosis, though to me it felt more like an autistic overload. I repeatedly tried to convince the services that autism, which I had self-diagnosed years prior, was a benefit, but they refused to even acknowledge it. So don't tell me that you're helping when your help is nothing thus, when your help is only punishment and nothing based on trust. And don't tell me that you're helping when you can't do the simplest thing. If you won't get me my laptop, maybe some nice long string. And don't tell me that you're helping when you're watching your own back while mine is all red, raw and bleeding and my heart set to crack. And don't tell me you can't see them. The hopeless, disenchanted mass, the ones that no more struggle, just lie upon the grass. Don't tell me you can't see it, the constant pain behind their eyes, that glistens with a gleam like raindrops when someone stops, says hi. So do not make me say it, for you will not accept my words. Just let me lick my wings in peace and somehow make it through at least, and don't tell me that you're helping, when your help is nothing thus, when your help is only punishment, no place to lay my trust. It is meant to be that to be sectioned, you have to be a danger to yourself or others. But they have this clever little capsule of has a medical condition that needs to be managed in hospital, which allows you to be taken with little justification if you are known to the services. And this leads to despair. I once read that there are approximately 300 deaths in mental wards a year. That is not just unfortunate, that is a disgrace. If 300 people were going into hospital with broken legs and coming out paralyzed, there would be outcry. Yet time and again, the deaths in mental wards are discounted as people with complex mental health issues or hidden in the back pages of the newspaper. The amount of stress the services put you under whilst commanding that you avoid stress would be comical if it were not deadly. There is no criterion for release. There is no way to get a diagnosis wiped from your record. If you are anxious or depressed, you can recover. But if you are bipolar or schizophrenic, you are considered that for life, though they diagnose on symptoms, not chemistry. The first time I was sectioned, they discharged me from the ward as soon as I was released. After the third time, they would not. For 2.5 years, I went to meetings wondering desperately what I could do to make them believe I was okay and achieve discharge. They kept asking me if I felt better. There was no criteria for better, no description as to what a healthy mind was, just better. And all I could think was that better was how I was that first time they sectioned me and took everything I had worked my life for from me. It took 2.5 years for work to offer me a project lead again. And it was 2.5 years later that my risky choice of boyfriend tried to kill me. And when being under the services did nothing to prevent my detention and his release. I was locked up for a month, while he walked away free and unquestioned. From there, any wonder became deathly serious, and a deep melancholy in not being in control of my own life overtook me. I sit here, and I hate myself. I don't want meds. I don't want help. It used to be a better day before they sectioned that away. Before they stripped me of my soul, spent weeks and months and years convincing me that I was ill, that I was wrong, somehow undone. I drank too much. I screwed too much. Somehow my brain just didn't work. Funny that, I have to think. It always had seemed fine. I'd got my grades, I'd done my job. I always had performed my lot. And crucially upon it all, I liked my deranged mind. And now there's anger in my soul, a pain I can't abide, a hardness and a broken heart, and innocence destroyed. The hardest part of being sectioned is that everybody assumes you deserved it. And that is true of the legal system too, for you cannot sue against a decision to be sectioned. There is no, I was sane, please let me explain route. I went back to a man I knew had the capacity for violence because he was the only person who didn't treat me like I was ill, but as a survivor with real, achievable goals and ambitions. He used to send me off to work with the phrase, "Go be a woman who means business in business." And he wanted a kid, a cute cottage, and a happy family life as much as I did. We clashed because he was very monogamous and I was a poly-swinger kid. And while I was prepared to be monogamous for him, I wasn't prepared to renounce the lifestyle or my friends from the scene. But I really did want the quiet life. You ask me for my fantasies. I say the quiet life, with a nice clean house and gardening, with baking instead of strife. I've been there now. I've done it. I've done everything. So let me tell you all the things that would cause my heart to sing. I want to bake a pretty cake, maybe a rainbow one, with coloured ice and sprinkles and a bow that I have done. I'd like to plant some daffodils in bright, delightful pots, and maybe a thriving herb patch. I would like that, lots and lots. I dream of chores not being chores, the hoover, dust and mop, and maybe even ironing the housework that God forgot. And as the evening hours lengthen, I'll scribble, draw and write, give the little cat a cuddle and make a tasty bite. I'd like to bake a fancy flan, maybe a hot pot for the main. When I tell you of my fantasies, they're really most mundane. Of course I like the passion. A party's mostly fun, but I'd like to live the wholesome life. Now all that's done is done. The rest of the world just constantly asks me, "How are you?" every 5 minutes, and fine was never an acceptable answer. This narrative that you must not accept fine as an answer from friends who have previously been depressed keeps people in the past and focused on their trauma. Like your recovery has to be at an acceptable rate for people around you. You end up in this weird limbo world where you are expected to act fine, but not too fine. I strongly believe that true recovery from trauma is possible, but you have to allow people to recover at their own rate and to experience joy, and to not talk about it if they do not want to, for they will when they do. Conversely, chasing happiness can have disastrous consequences. In a wondrous world, Julie screamed. The essence had run dry. Where once was joy and butterflies, now seemed like dust and dirt and lies. With chafed bare hands and battered knees, she scratched the arid earth, digging deeply, frantically, a small puddle to unturf. For Julie felt that if she found some water underground, she could renew the arid earth and life and beauty would abound. But nothing came but lice and stone, and clouds of swirling black, her tears the only liquid here, the bright sun burning on her back. The memories of sweet release, of frolic, fun and friends, of dappled dew and lily pads, of woodlands, fields, dunes and fens. These urged her onwards, deeper down, so desperately she dug. Not heeding any pleas to wait, she travelled further through the mud. The small oasis Julie found was many feet below the ground, quite cut off from the world above, a shallow joy of broken love. And then the rains began to fall. The water flowed down the walls. But nothing good this deep could grow, an impatient soul's lost shadow. The raindrops splashed her face and neck, and stung and laughed at her distress. She screamed and clawed and tried to climb, but was too deep down the mine. The arid earth began to bloom, swallows, daisies, sweet perfume. Lush grass and verdant meadows too, pools and tadpoles, a life anew. And as the earth above rebound, Julie was nowhere to be found. A pitiful and hollow sound. Alas, in the well, Julie drowned. Bipolar is a common misdiagnosis for autism, and something that I do not recognize from my youth. Sure, I had been depressed, but manic highs were not something I knew. It took 3 years getting a private diagnosis, then spectacularly and terrifyingly getting sectioned 2 days later, before they would even send me for an NHS assessment, which of course came back positive. I should not have had to have been noticeably autistic before I was believed. Even after getting the diagnosis, it was not given any due consideration. I had hoped that they would reassess the bipolar in lieu of the autism, but they did not. And the autism was not even on my section notes the next time I was taken to hospital. In an effort to heal myself, I attempted to get private trauma therapy and was turned down by 3 separate trauma specialists as soon as I mentioned the word section for having too much trauma and requiring a whole team of doctors and psychiatrists. Too much trauma? For trauma therapy? Struggling on my own, I used alcohol to numb my brain. I'd always liked to drink, but this was different. I now no longer drank with friends, but on my own. I tried to confide in a friend that I thought I had developed a problem, to which she simply told me that I couldn't have because I didn't buy 2 bottles of wine and go straight back to bed like her aunt does. I smiled and nodded, but inside I wanted to scream, "Don't say I'm not a drinker." For that, I really am. The outward face of sobriety, for that one, is the sham. For when I'm on my own, it's all I think about. The luscious golden liquor that takes away my doubt, that lets me just forget, that leads to fitful rest, that takes the days of Sundar and takes them off my chest. Don't say I'm not a drinker, for I drink every day. I don't know how to carry on. I cannot stay this way. Don't say I'm not a drinker, but take my hand and laugh and tell me we will change this, that I am on the right path. For sure I will defeat this. I'll do my very best. But now I'd like some vodka and fitful, awful rest. After losing my 2 dearest friends from the course of my life in the space of a week, my happiness reached rock bottom and I became properly suicidal for the first time in my life. I kind of knew I wouldn't do anything, but for the first time I didn't know, and I felt unsafe being on my own. I begged the services for medication, anything to take the edge off. But they will not prescribe antidepressants to someone with a bipolar diagnosis in case it triggers a manic episode. Remember, depressed people are easier to deal with. Desperate, I took to sourcing my own medication from the dark web. Do not recommend, very slow delivery times. I would also invite strangers round to my house because Being with a stranger was safer than being on my own. And by this time I had precious few friends I could call on, because seeing me ill would tend to end my friendships. I dreamt of comfort and being in a place where I was not the most fucked up person in the room. So I'll wander to the crack den, because that's when my pain ends. I thought it would be a happy day. I thought I'd make amends. I booked a nice hotel suite. I thought I'd treat myself, but there's no one here to share it. So I'll stay here by myself. So I'll wander to the crack den. Maybe that'll ease my pain, that all the friends I still cherish do not feel for me the same. I'd walk many a country mile. I'd knock right on their door. If that was what was called for, I'd even do way more, but I invite them round for dinner, or just a cup of tea, and everyone's too busy to see me. So I'll wander to the crack den and drink the cheap red wine and drown away my sorrows until they think I'm fine. It may take many moons. It may take many years to alleviate the terror, to soothe the constant fears. I've smartened up the terrace. The place is looking tight, but no one here to visit me. Well, isn't that just right? So I'll wander to the crack den, because that's where my pain ends. I thought it'd be a happy day. I thought I'd make amends. There is no difference between recreational drugs and psychoactive medication, except for who the money goes to. They both work to alter your brain chemistry, whether on a short-term or long-term basis. I am nothing but ire for people in positions of responsibility who on the one side preach abstinence, while on the other indulge themselves. Fuck you, middle classes, doing coke on Saturday night. But golly, that's all right, darling, what a frightfully good time. Get the Prosecco, sweetie, and the chips and dips, so the white line insists they'll go untouched. Fuck you, middle classes, with your sneaky midweek joints. Health calms the nerves after a stressful day. In between Pilates and Radio 4, there's no thief knocking on your door, your bed isn't on the floor. But golly dear, what a giggle. Anyone for stone-baked pizza? Fuck you, middle classes, drinking wine by the carafe. Hungover again? Damn my head, another bottle of red. How much is it this month? But it's not White Lightning or Special Brew, so that's okay. And it was such a hoot. It is not bad that they do these things. Life is hard and drugs can be a delight. It is the one rule for them and one rule for others that is unacceptable. It is not the drugs that are the problem. It is the overuse. But there is a wealth of distance between overuse and complete abstinence. And if you preach abstinence, you must be abstinent yourself. I had hoped to do this show medication-free, but that is not the case. I am in an invisible prison where I am injected once a month with medication that I know not what it does. I am on no order. They cannot legally force me to take the medication, but they can make your life very difficult if you do not. And after a few sectionings, the threat of a community treatment order requiring you to take medication is always there, hanging over your head if you have the audacity to try med-free and then slip up. In October last year, I received an ADHD diagnosis, collecting diagnoses, which I had hoped would open up alternative medication streams. But 10 months on, and I am still waiting for anyone to discuss it with me. I strongly believe that there is little wrong with a lot of people in the wards. These are kind, driven people going out of their minds in a system that represses and punishes. For it was so often the patients that made the wards bearable, not the staff. In a forest, far away, a little girl began to blow. She blew so hard she moved the trees and brought them crashing to their knees. She did not mean to, but she did, and what was done was not undid. She blew so hard she puffed with fright and ran off screaming to the night. But in the darkness, she could not see the scary quest of destiny. She hid among the shadow beasts and gorged with plenty at their feast. Her head was clear, her heart divine, but something tingled in her spine. She knew this way she could not stay, and someday soon she'd face the day. The sun would rise and cast anew a carnage that she knew she blew. She ran and hid and tried to hide, but nature saw beneath her lies. Nature saw her inner soul all ripped and torn, a gaping hole. A hole that could not fill itself. A hole too large for just one elf. She stumbled and she dared to move. 1 foot then two she faced the blue. She saw the pain around her go and started some new seeds to sow. What once was waste began to bloom, but days were short and night too soon. If only night could become day, the world could live another way. Then out of darkness sprang the light, a communal zone of such delight, a sanctuary to call her own with others who had blown and blown. And flowers came and friends appeared, and one by one they calmed her fears. The faceless few became a mass, and darkness ran and hid and gasped. The sun shone down upon her face, all tainted red with her disgrace. But not alone she had new strength, a world that now would not be drenched. The last time I was sectioned was November last year, and that was next level crazy. Full story next time. I had attended church trying to find some answers, and it was more of a religious experience than I expected. Coming back, I implored the universe to give me a sign, any sign. Gabriel would be nice. And 15 minutes later, a guy I'd invited round from a hookup site appeared, and in my mind I recognized him as the angel. I asked him where his wings were, and he told me he'd left them at home. But the burned image of that date is him standing there with a Bible in his hand and serenity in his eyes. To me it was a sign that at least the universe had seen how hard I was trying. But the universe was also telling me that my cat was a demon, keeping me on the dark side of life, and I had to kill him. I begged the universe not to make me, because I did love him so. So I lived with my friend Percy. He's a funny little thing. Doesn't really like to play, like to join or anything. He mostly sits around the place, eating food, stuffing his face. Putting his bum into my face, he really is quite the disgrace. So I live with my friend Percy, though he's very rarely there, though sometimes he'll appear as if from the thin air. He's underneath my feet now, he's wrapped around my legs, he's in my nice warm seat now, he's everywhere I tread. So I live with my friend Percy, a party boy I'll warn. He'll head out in the evening and not come back till dawn. But in the morning sunshine, he'll climb into my bed and use my body heat to rest his tired head. So I live with my friend Percy. He's a funny little thing. His favourite place to lie is in the laundry bin. He brought me back a worm once, but he's not brave enough for mice. He's really not a killer, which is really rather nice. So I live with my friend Percy. His fur gets everywhere, the furniture's in tatters, oh do I despair. But when I see his little face, just staring at the fridge, I have to say, I love you, my squidgy little squidge. Not hurt my dear Percy, who still lives with me in London, though it so easily could have been different. 7 years ago, I was sectioned when I felt the most motivated and confident I have felt in my life, and when I felt I had the world at my feet. The effects, as you can see, were devastating. 7 years later, and I am questioning the existence of gods. Whilst I will never say that I was ill that first time I was sectioned, I have been as ill as anybody in the wards. And if I can come back, so can they. I strongly believe that true recovery is possible, but people struggling with their mental health need encouragement that they can, not commands to stop. I am delighted to have put you through this drama so early in the day. Go see some drama now, if anything up from here is a comedy. I have been Poppy and I will be in the bar afterwards. Thank you.